All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And Tina, this is going to be such an awesome interview. I have been looking forward to this. So, for one, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
Yes, and you and I we just did a little bit of research before we hit the record button because I was thinking, oh, it's probably been about 10, 11 years that we've known each other now, and we figured no, it's been more like actually 13 years,
Yeah.
and I can still totally remember the how of we got connected because I used to have a publishing company. I don't have it any longer. I've kind of moved on from that. But for 12 years, I had that publishing company. And 2008 was the first year we broke $1 million in gross revenue in that company. And
Yeah.
I was using the one shopping cart platform that I had started with way back when, and I knew I was outgrowing it. I had tried to switch over to Infusionsoft before that period of time, and just it was costing a lot of money. And man, I'm not going to lie, Tina, I just had nothing. It was a disaster.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get it switched over, and so when I was talking with my friend Michael Cage about this, I was like, I really need to get somebody to help me with the tech side of stuff here, and so he suggested that I get your book, The Online Business Manager, which I did. I got your
Yeah.
book, and I read
Yeah.
your book, and he's like, Kevin, you need to get her book, check it out, and then get a hold of her and hire her to do the consult because she'll go through that and she'll help you really articulate, how to articulate what you're looking for, and then she's even got a group of people that once you've done that, she can put you in front of. And Tina, I can still remember that conversation that you and I had when I hired you for that consult. And you were
Yeah.
so helpful because you did. You told me how to write about and explain what I was looking to do. And then you told me that, Kevin, and once you start getting put in front of people, here's what you're looking for. You are looking, when you start interviewing potential people, you are looking for that person who's going to respond to you. Once you share your vision for your company and where you want it to go, you want the person who's going to be responding to that saying, wow, that is really fascinating. And are you open to some suggestions on how I might be able to help you do that? You are not looking for the
Mm.
person who wants you to tell them how they can help you do that. and,
Yeah.
and that was so valuable. And in fact, Sharon, that was exactly how she responded. And I can still remember that very first month after I hired her, because of my previous experience, I was really nervous, and she kept having to calm me down on the whole migration thing over to Infusion because we had all these connections. I mean, we had all these contacts. We had paying customers that were paying us every month, and all that had to get switched over. And she was like, Kevin, she goes, we got this. We totally got this for you. And each
Yeah.
week she would tell me, this is what we're doing this week. This is what, and they did. They totally got it done. And I had Sharon was with me for years in that company, and still until I switched over and stopped running that publishing company and stuff. And
Yeah.
so that was an elongated kind of, but I will tell you, man, what a powerful testimonial to the power of relationships, of right relationships, which is what this
Yes.
podcast is all about.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, that even reminds me, Kevin, like this on this topic of relationships. I feel like so much of my business is driven by, and the success of the business has been driven by relationships. Because even as you're sharing this, I do remember when we connected too. It's funny to think it was like 13 years ago because it doesn't feel like it was that long
no,
ago.
it doesn't.
Um, and, just as a quick bit of background for folks listening, one part of my business is the online business manager certification. program, and I started training and certifying OBMs back in 2009. So that's been 15 years
Mhm.
now at this point. And that's when we connected, Kevin, and did that initial bit of work together. Sharon, who you mentioned, who's amazing, she was one of our certified OBMs at the time. And part of what I've always loved about that is, and part of what drove me to create that certification program years ago was just seeing the frustration of business owners who were making stuff happen, right? Like, I know you had things going on. You were like, all kinds of things happening. You were growing and you were expanding and various things in the business. And it's like, I need somebody to help me with
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I need somebody to be in it with me, not just somebody that I have to, quote unquote, tell what to do all day, every day kind of thing.
Mhm.
Because that, I mean, yes, there's a space for that kind of role on the team, and there's a time it makes sense. But especially as a growing business owner, like to be in that right relationship with somebody who's going to be operating almost from a partnership perspective, not
Mhm.
officially being a partner, but bringing that mindset to the
Yeah.
table, bringing that, knowledge and expertise, and frankly, bringing that caring to the
Yeah.
table
Yeah.
too, right? Like somebody who's
Absolutely.
going to care about your business as much as you do, or
Yeah.
pretty close. If
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
100% as much, like pretty darn close that way. And that is part of what drove me to create the OBM certification years ago, because it really was, just as a bit of background, like I started working as an online business manager myself back in 2003. And
Okay.
again, like 20 some odd years ago now. And
Wow.
at that point, we, together with my friend Andrea Lee, her and I, we eventually co-created this program together, another bit of a relationship there. But her and I were doing some work with folks at the time. And I knew that what I was doing was not a virtual assistant role, right? Because the
Okay.
role of a virtual assistant in a VA has been around for many, many years now, like
Mhm.
well over a couple of decades. And at that point, I knew that the way I was operating with clients was not in that typical way of a VA, because I was the one coming in. I was the one, okay, here's what's going on. Here's what we need to do. Let's make this happen. Let's make that happen. Let me gather the people. Let me gather the team. Let's make sure we're making progress. Like I was operating at a different level, in a
Mhm.
different way than I knew the traditional VA role was. And so started calling myself an online business manager back in that time frame. And,
Okay.
over the years, as I was working with clients too, people were coming to me, and from both sides of the coin. Like I was having business owners come to me saying, Tina, I need to hire somebody who does what you do, right? And it
Mhm.
was like,
Mhm.
I didn't know. There was a handful of other people kind of doing similar things, but not a lot out there. And likewise, I was having folks from the support, like the service provider end, coming to me and saying, Tina, I want to do what you're doing because I really want to make a difference with my clients, right? Like, I don't want to be just a taskmaster. I don't want to feel like I'm just off in the corner doing my things that need to get done. Like I know I have more to contribute. I really want to plug in. I really want to be a part of what my clients are creating. And it was based on both sides of that coin, in a sense, that led me to create the OBM certification, which the ultimate mission of that program, which was true in 2009 and is true here today as well, is to be able to connect business owners with that person, like with that right hand person who's going to help them run and grow their business day
Yeah.
to day. And when that relationship works, like mwah, like chef's
It is.
kiss. It's
It's beautiful. It is a beautiful. Sharon, like I said, was with me for years, and man, I was
yeah,
so grateful and appreciative for her and her team, and all
yeah,
that they did for me, and well, even still to this day, the whole tech stuff
yeah.
boggles my
No
mind, and I
thanks.
want nothing to do with it.
They're like,
It's
don't make me
not my
look at that
thing.
stuff. And thank goodness for the people that love it,
That's
the
right.
tech
That's right.
day to day and the back end and the admin and the ops and all of that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
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 So that's definitely a key relationship. Another one for me that you're reminding me of as we're talking about this is my friend Andrea Lee, who I first mentioned, or who I
Okay.
mentioned already. And Andrea and I, um, we started working together initially in 2002, I think it
Okay.
was. If we want to go way, way back, her and I worked together with Thomas Leonard before he passed away, who is very much considered the founder of the coaching industry. He unfortunately died in 2003. So there's a lot of folks in our world now who haven't even heard of him, but he started so much of what's become the professional coaching industry these days. And Andrea and I worked together in Thomas's company up to, during the time like when he passed away and afterwards. And she was the COO at that time of his company. But that's where her and I met, and we started working together and collaborating on different things after that. Like I mentioned, it was her and I together that coined that phrase, online business manager, which is pretty established out there now, right? Like a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
people, even if they may or may not understand what the role is exactly, like, people have heard of it and it's a
They've
pretty
heard the
common.
term for sure. Yeah.
Yep, they've heard the term, and it's a pretty commonly accepted role out there in our online space at this point. But Andrea and I, we kind of chuckle even to this day. It's like to go back to that conversation was like, oh, what do we want to call ourselves? I mean, we're not really doing this. Got to call ourselves something different, kind of
Uh-huh.
thing, right? And that turned into online business manager. But her and I worked together for years. She's very much a coach, consultant, thought leader in various ways, and we worked together for many years. And she played a big part in uh, poking, prodding, and nudging me to
Okay.
create the certification because there was really like it. I always say that I feel like my entrepreneurial journey has been a bit of a trail of breadcrumbs. Like I don't feel like I never set out with big goals in mind, especially in those earlier days. It was like, let me try this, let me try that. Let's see what happens here. Like it was just sort of following this trail of breadcrumbs as things would come up. And Andrea at a certain point was like, Tina, like you mentioned the book, right? My Becoming an Online Business Manager book, which still exists, different second
Yep.
version of it now. Probably going to need a third version of it pretty quick. This book came out in 2008. Um, and she was nudging me to write that book, right? Like, Tina, you got to write this book. It would be, so valuable. People will want to need it. And then with the book, shortly thereafter, it turned into the training and certification and our association. We have the International Association of Online Business Managers, which is the home of our certified OBMs. And all of that wouldn't have existed necessarily
Yeah.
without Andrea at the time, right? Being very much a thought partner and of course a good friend and such too, but also being the one to kind of like poke, 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 like do this, you can do it. It's wanted, it's needed. Because I never considered myself to be a business leader of any kind in those
Okay.
early,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
it was just like, oh, I'm just self-employed, or oh, I'm just doing a bit of this or a bit of that, to earn some income and, make money. And while my kids were young, they were born 2006, 2008. It wasn't until I stepped into creating that certification program that I feel like I became, might sound funny to say it this way, became like a legit business owner. Like it was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm officially doing this now, even though I'd been doing it for many years before then. But that Andrea played a really big part in that and is still one of my best friends to this day, like
That's awesome.
personally and professionally, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so through doing all this, you also help other entrepreneurs create their own certification programs too. You kind of like
Yeah.
branched into it was like the next natural progression and evolution, I guess, wasn't it?
Yeah, like when I started my certification, I had no idea what I was doing. Like it definitely was a throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks, make it up as
Uh-huh.
I go, cross my fingers and hope it all works out, which I don't recommend for this
But
model.
that's
There's
what
too much.
entrepreneurs do. I mean,
I
when you
know.
to hear you describe that,
Oh,
I'm like, that is totally how I felt for so much of my life.
oh my gosh. and it is a necessary part of things, I think, in the beginning. But again, kind of that natural outcome or flow that you mentioned, like as with my certification program, people again started asking me, like, Tina, I want to create my own certification, or hey, or a lot of times they would ask, like, can I ask you a question about creating the certification? And I'm like, you need to ask me more than one question. Like, there's just a lot of facets to this model, and it's a very strategic model. You have to be very purposeful in the way that you structure it and run it and everything. And so I started doing some work initially just kind of on the side for a
Mhm.
period of years, like some consulting work with people, and I ran a program a couple of times, while I was mainly focused on the certified OBM
Okay.
program. And then back in 2018, another of probably my most important and cherished relationships that I've created through my business. In 2018 is when I brought on our licensed trainers
Okay.
in on the OBM, on the certified OBM side of things. And through doing that, that freed me up to have more time personally to work with other experts and thought leaders and such to create their own certification training programs and various things through
Okay.
their business. And part of what I love, I don't see a lot of people necessarily doing this model at the moment, like in our online space necessarily.
Okay.
Um, but what's worked out so well, because basically what was going on for me around 2018, 2017, 2018, I was hitting a point again in my business. And this is such an interesting dilemma, I think, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, where, okay, my OBM certification had been running, what, 2009, like 8, 9 years at that point,
Okay. Okay.
um, doing really well. People are loving it. It's a great thing all around. But I personally was getting bored in it.
Okay.
I was like, it's like, oh, I mean, honestly, some of the thoughts in my head were like, please don't make me lead this training again. Like, I love these people. I love what this program is about. I love what it does in the world, but oh, I just can't do it again,
I
right?
just
Like
don't want to run another training.
exactly. And I mean, again, like you were saying, as entrepreneurial folks, like it's very much, I'm always looking at what's new and exciting, which for me personally can be fun. That's not always best for the business, but I was in this space of like, okay, love this program. It's not the type of thing where I was going to be like, let's just shut it down and focus on something new. It's like I really wanted it to continue and was very committed to that. And in 2018, I had a couple of different people approach me to say, hey, have you ever thought of, like, I would really like to teach this OBM certification training. Have you ever thought of licensing it so that I could go out and teach this program? And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like,
Uh-huh.
that
Uh-huh.
became this real like ding ding ding
Yep.
kind of moment. And starting in 2018, I had originally 3 licensed trainers that came on board at that point, and they were, the license for them is they had full permission and license to teach the OBM certification program, through their own business, right? They were also responsible for enrollment as well.
Okay.
So that took the responsibility, so to speak, off me and my business to
Uh-huh.
be marketing, selling, launching, and running and delivering the
Yeah.
training program, because they
Yeah.
started doing it
Yeah.
instead. And I could have continued doing it myself too. Like the licensing model that way can work well. Like I could have still done it while they
Uh-huh.
were doing it as well. But for me personally, I was like, I really didn't want to anymore, right? Like that was part of my motivation, was I really didn't want to keep doing it. And so, and I also, it's a little challenging to be like in competition with
Uh-huh.
yourself almost in that model. So I was like, okay, I'm no longer going to offer the program directly. But it's been such a wonderful, wonderful model because it's allowing, it really served what I was looking for. Like I want to
Uh-huh.
continue to grow and grow the community and expand the brand and, support people who want to become certified OBMs, and they in turn get to go out and work with amazing folks like you, Kevin, to like help run and grow their businesses. I really wanted that to continue. Like that's still so important to me. But it also released me from having to do the training and such myself. And then my certified or my licensed trainers, they get to go out and create something amazing around delivering this training program. Right. And so it's been some really, I would say, probably some of the most important relationships in my business. And even up to this day. So I've had the group of people who are my licensed trainers has changed. I've had a couple of people leave, and a few more people come into the mix over time. But part of what I really love about this model too, this licensing model is, they care as much about the certified OBM programs. They care as much about the success of people coming out of our certification training as I ever could. Right. And then like together, we all get to care even more, like exponentially. There's a bigger impact that way. We have a commitment whenever somebody comes through our certification program that the trainers, and then through the association too, but the trainers, they will work directly with any student up to the point that they find their first client.
Okay.
Right. Like it's, there's that level of commitment, that level of caring. It's not a, hey, you're trained and certified, bye, you're on your own
Uh-huh.
now kind of thing, like, which sometimes things can feel like that, right? Especially going through different
Totally.
program journeys.
Yep.
Um, they're very committed to the future of this training and the evolution of it. Because as I'm sure you can imagine, things have changed quite a bit in
Yeah.
15 years too. And even right now, we're going through another big up leveling of the training and, adding things, removing things, tweaking, refining things. And it's all very much driven by the trainers who I
Yeah.
work with right now, who are just amazing, amazing people. And I
Yeah.
just can't imagine doing it any other way. Like, because
Yeah.
I could have gone in house, right? Like, I could have brought trainers in house. I
Uh-huh.
could have built and I feel like that's the model or that's the route that a lot of people will go as a default. And again,
Okay.
there's lots of amazing things about that work about that model. But, I don't want a great big team. I don't want to, like, it's not the way I want to build my business. I'm so much more inspired by empowering other people to be able to create their own livelihood and like do their own thing.
Yeah.
That's more important to me than it is for me to build this great big business thing under my own umbrella,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
That totally, because I am the same exact way,
Yeah.
and that publishing company, when I was in it, at its peak it was doing 1.6 million a year,
Yeah.
and people were blown away to find out that I was just a sole operator running that
Yes.
business right out of my home and stuff with some
I
10
remember that.
people and stuff, They're
I
like, you
remember
got
when you
no employees? I'm like, I have zero employees.
exactly. I remember that when we first connected. I was like, what? You need help.
and
Yeah.
but and I'm still that way. I mean, I have friends of mine that are very successful entrepreneurs running really big companies with 50, 100, 200, 300 team members, and
Yeah.
you know what? More power to them. But my goodness, I would want nothing to do with that. That is not my thing.
Yeah. It's like I love people, but I don't love them that much. No, I don't
Yeah,
know. That's maybe not the best way to say, but just like I do. Like, and I love that model. I think it's such a great model too, but it's just not my preferred way of working.
yeah. It's not.
And
It's not my thing. And
no,
it's
it's just
I
not.
just like I like doing this. I like having conversations with entrepreneurs and just figuring out what they're working on, what their challenges are, what their opportunities are, and figure. And I can just see the connections, and I like
Yeah.
doing that,
Yeah.
and
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 yeah. And
stay in
it's
my lane, you know.
well, and it's interesting too, because through this idea of like $1 million relationships and such, right? I mean, that's what this has been with all of us together.
Yeah,
So it is because of the training team and the licensed trainers and everybody all together. That's what's created that income in this bigger way.
yeah,
Like it hasn't been, again, it hasn't been just me doing that. It's
That's right.
been everybody together. And
Yeah.
then the way, because it's a license arrangement, like I get paid some every time they get a student and they
Yep.
get paid and all this kind of stuff. Like there's a real beautiful way to structure those things that I think can work really, really well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been amazing. And like my trainers, just to give them a shout out, Kelly Jameson has been with me from day one as a licensed trainer, and she's amazing. Shar and Wade Langen, who husband and wife team, and they are trainers together, and they run an amazing company with the training work they do. Amanda Hyde Pierce is our trainer in the UK, so she works a lot and runs her programs mainly with people who are UK, EU, that
Okay.
part of the world based and such, even though globally our community is 24 countries, I think, right now represented
Okay.
in the
Okay.
association. But yeah, the training team together that way, like it's just been, they are just amazing, amazing people
Yeah.
to work with, and it is kind of interesting to think through that lens of, I feel like too, sometimes when we're hiring, like I need to hire somebody to work for me to do this certain thing, right? Like there's always a need for that in some way. That's always going to be true. But I don't know, that brings a slightly different mindset and dynamic than like, how do we come together and create something together?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, which is what this licensing model has been. It's like, it's not about me at the top and them reporting to me in any
Uh-huh.
way. Like, it's not like just, that's not the relationship. It's like, oh, hey, together, almost like that Venn diagram, the two overlapping circles, like together we're overlapping
Yeah.
in this very specific way. And we work together in this very specific way. And I think that that really does create a whole different kind of relationship and can really deepen
Yeah.
the
For sure.
relationships and the ways that we work
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
Well, and one thing that's like really clear is how appreciative you are of them, Tina. You are just
Oh
incredibly
yeah.
appreciative of them. And I would imagine that they feel the same exact way towards you.
Yeah.
And, I look at like, some of the relationships in my life where I have relationships because I can't do what I do with just anybody because
Oh yeah.
they have to have foundational things in place already. They have to be already successfully selling their thing. They have to have a track record of delivering results for clients and happy clients and all of that kind of stuff. And they need to show up a certain way. That their default way of showing up is they show up, they ready to contribute, to help, to serve, to pour into others. I mean, I cannot do what I do with, I kind of describe them as a giver, but I
Yeah.
cannot do what I do with anybody who is a taker, because we know those people too and stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm completely useless to those people. I'm completely useless to somebody who's still trying to figure their thing out and stuff too.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
that I've tried to help those people in the past just because I liked them. But that's not in my unique ability. And it's like that is like carrying such a weight trying to get out of my lane and just try to help somebody versus like, you know what, I can just turn you over to somebody else that can do that far better than I can if you're willing to invest in their assistance.
Yeah.
And just staying in my lane and serving those people that I am like most valuable to. um, it's this incredible appreciation for each other
Yeah.
because we complement each other so well, and I love helping them. I love being of value to them, and when I get that feedback from them, it just inspires me. Like, well, gosh, I want to do more for them.
Yeah.
Not because I have to, because I want to, because I just like them.
And even just that fundamental idea, especially I feel like being in business, there's so much of like, I could do anything and everything for everybody, that especially in the earlier stages that
Uh-huh.
kicks in, and that can be very tempting. I had that conversation with somebody just yesterday around like, hey, this program right now is serving this, kind of client avatar, and like, ooh, I'm not sure I want to focus on this. And it's like, but what do I do with this? Like, well,
Mhm.
you don't have to keep doing the things that kind of, as you were saying, aren't necessarily in your lane.
Yeah.
Like, and even I've always had this vision, especially in the, excuse me, the coaching space, like the online training coaching world, where it's like, how much better could things be if everybody came together kind of doing their thing versus each person, each group, each program trying to be all things to
Yeah.
everybody all
Yeah.
the time, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a drag too. Like, you better believe there's things I don't like doing for people, even if they
Right.
want from me.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And I'm not going to be the best person to do it then either,
That's
based on
right.
that. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, this has been really amazing, and it's like, it's very interesting because like I see, what I've really found with relationships over the years, because I mean, heck, I've got, as I'm sure you do, got relationship. Well, I mean, I started my entrepreneurial career 28 years ago, almost 29, and I have relationships spanning back that far that I'm still friends with to this day.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is about relationships when we're talking about the right people, the right relationships, is over time those relationships become more and more valuable because we're continuing up leveling our skill sets. We're becoming better at what we do. We discover more. We become more effective at what I know I sure as have become way more effective over the last 7 years by just focusing. And in specific, over the last 2.5, 3 years, I mean, we've had some major breakthroughs in, because once you get that momentum going, you start making more discoveries that lead to more. And
Yeah.
so the relationships become more and more valuable. I think of a guy like Travis Sago, who I met, well, I mean, are another great example. We met and you were at the level that you were at 13 years ago. Well, you're infinitely ahead of that now. And
Yeah.
you are far more valuable to the people in your world now than you were 13 years ago, you know
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's a really amazing dynamic to just kind of watch unfold and see that, like, it's, yeah, things are way more valuable, and especially with everything going on. I mean, man, relationships are, as an entrepreneur, they're our most valuable asset. And so, well, Tina, this, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Really, I agree with you. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And anybody who is listening to this and going, man, Kevin, I really like Tina. I love how she shows up, and man, I'd like to talk with her because I think she might be able to help me out with some stuff. What are some resources? Any websites, any resources we can let people have access to?
Yeah, my personal website, tinaforsyth.com.
Okay.
And it's Forsyth without an E on the end. So that's my personal site, which is more about the helping experts create certification, licensing, et cetera, programs. And by all means, I'm happy to connect with anybody through that site. You'll find information and such on
Okay.
there. And then also onlinebusinessmanager.com. That's the site for our certified OBM
Okay.
community too. So if anybody is listening thinking, all right, I need somebody who's going to really come in and help work with me at that higher level to help run and grow the business and be like that right hand person or that partner in their business. Online business manager, there's, our directory and various ways to find and connect with some great people there too.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will make sure that we include that with the show notes and stuff. Tina, any last
Thanks.
thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
I mean, I love this conversation, Kevin, because it really feels like, at the end of the day, relationships are the things that matter in our business. And even to your point, like there's people I've met, like I mentioned, my friend Andrea, we've known each other and worked together now for over 20 years. Like, there's people I met like 15 years ago. And it's just, even if there's times where we're like out of touch, you reconnect and you recatch up and just, there's so much like I do feel like even though there may be ups and downs in the business or things that happen, challenges over time, it's like at the end of the day, I know and have some really great relationships with a lot of amazing people out there
Yeah,
that I respect, that I think are amazing, that I know if even if it's been 5 years, we can reconnect and, have
totally.
a conversation and all of that. And that just really is so, so important
Yeah,
in this journey. Like
yeah.
it really is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for
it is so cool how it happens sometimes. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, I got invited to this little get together of entrepreneurs down in Arizona, and I flew
yeah.
down there, and there was 13 of us who had got together, and one of the guys I had not seen or talked with in 8 years, and yet, and a year ago, he started a brand new business that they're just, in fact, they'll do 2 million in their first year. He's like, Kevin, in the next 12 months, we're probably going to do 5 to 8 million. And he's like, and since I talked with you last, I am now father to 4 kids, aged 2 to 8. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
and so him and I got, and we picked up right where we left off without even missing a beat. And that's the way it
Yeah.
is with right relationships. And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, it's, and the more we go forward, the more that relationships are just going to be such a valuable piece of what we do and stuff. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I'm really excited to get it out there and share it with a lot of other people, and help spread the word about what you guys are doing, the work that you guys are doing. And so thanks so much, Tina.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin.